Hi, welcome back to another episode of Scrap Factory. Today we're gonna work on nuclear power, and it's gonna be really exciting. I made a little mod like that before. You can see what I made over here, and yeah, I think the reactor is currently overheating, which is kind of bad. I need the water. Friendly reminder to stay hydrated. But yeah, I also made a video about this mod. You can check it out if you're curious about this. But basically we just pump in some water, some uranium ore, and then we just have a reactor, and we try to have kind of like a balance, because you know, the uranium produces lots of heat, so we need to cool it. But if we cool it too much, you know, there's no heat left. I mean, I don't think it really works like that in real life, but who cares? I think it's kind of fun to balance stuff. And basically I'm just gonna copy paste all of this code, and then we should have nuclear power in Scrap Factory. Now obviously we're gonna need some cooling water, and the problem is kind of that the water it doesn't work, because as it turns out, if all of the water in a creative world like this works, the game gets kind of laggy. We just disabled it, which means the performance is great, but this is kind of a bummer. So the question is, how are we gonna get our water to cool the reactor? Now it would be cool if I find a way to figure out, you know, if you place something inside the water that technically isn't there, but that would be extremely complicated and janky. So instead we're doing it a little bit more simple. We're just gonna add a new dropper like this, which is just gonna drop water. Why is the physics material of water a fruit? It doesn't make sense. It's like really weird anyway. But I've just done copy pasting this stuff. See, there's object dropper underscore water. Alright, let's have a little look at this thingy. And it drops water bottles. Okay, the collision is a bit jank, so it kind of yeets the water bottles, but actually I think it's kind of funny. I like how it just immediately stops moving as soon as it hits the belt. But yeah, now we got our water to cool the reactor with. Also, it's worth nothing. So now I just need to add like a Nestle upgrader that makes it worth $1 million. Anyway, now we already have a uranium dropper in the mod, and it drops these green kind of blocks, which represent uranium 238. And there's a 0.3% chance, I think, for it to drop. The uranium 235 is lighter than the uranium 238. And I don't want to spoil how this machine works, but basically it extracts the lighter uranium for me, and this is the uranium you need to make nuclear fuel, but also like nuclear weapons. You can also read all of this on Wikipedia. So you see natural uranium. Oh, it actually is 0.7%. And we want to enrich it, so basically increase the content of the lighter isotope. And how can you do this? In the game I made it so that the lighter isotope is, I think it has a density of 1, so it is much lighter than the green stuff, which is not realistic, but you know, that kind of allows you to work with scrap mechanic physics to filter these drops, and I think that's a cool challenge. Anyway, don't worry about this. Here's our enriched uranium. Maybe it's a little bit too enriched, but I don't know. And we already got our cooling water over there, so it's time to actually work on the reactor itself. So yeah, I'm basically just gonna yoink this file. You know, I just need to clean up the script because there's some stuff in here which we don't need. Local water. Oh my god, this is a great script. Alright, I'm excited. There is the object underscore generator underscore nuclear. Alright, moment of truth, and there's already a problem. I have just invented the nuclear reactor. Here you can see the interface, and the title is of course a little scuffed because it doesn't have a name yet, and yeah, we need uranium to start the reactor. Alright, now it shows us how much power the reactor is producing, which is great, and currently it's nothing. So how do we get the reactor started? My idea is we basically take our furnaces and just slap them on the sides of the reactor, and one of them takes water and one of them takes uranium. Oh my god, I already forgot about this part. So it's some weird rotation thingy with the effect that, like, you know, visualize. As soon as I place these, the effects appear for a second and then they immediately disappear. Alright, now this still might look wrong to you, and that's because I don't want to mess with the rotations right now. I rather want to figure out if the area triggers are working too.
Nope.
Somehow this function, which creates something that is attached to a shape, is not attached to a shape. Wait, do I actually need to give the self parameter? Wow, this should have not made any difference, but it did. Great. So yeah, now whenever we're in the water, it says trigger water. So, you know, this way I can differentiate between the water and the uranium triggers. Oh my goodness, I'm getting so good at rotations. It's truly incredible. The effect also works right now, but yeah, as you can see, it just just has to do with the rotation of the effect, because the shader that I use for this is really weird. I forgot that the water drops just float like this. So like I've just made the water just disappear and create the splash effect, and probably change the numbers to like the actual temperature decrease. Now we also have a uranium effect. It's a little bit lighter than the other stuff, and it just has this burn effect, which doesn't really make a lot of sense because we're not really burning the uranium, but I think this is already looking cool. And now we actually get to make the reactor itself work. Hey guys, some time has passed, and I'm pretty much done with the nuclear reactor by now. I also like finished my uni stuff for now, so plenty of time to do some modding. I had some troubles with the like interface of the reactor, so whenever you look at it, there's this text pop-up that appears with like additional information. And this also shows like the heat of the reactor, which you can also see in the interface, and the amount of fuel you have in there, as well as the purity of your fuel. And the way I made this work in the end is there's this slider, and you can like change how much purity it processes at once, which it's not entirely accurate, but it basically allows you to kind of control how fast the thing feeds up. I mean, basically just turn the slider to a level you can cool, which also, yeah, I made this thing able to like overheat. Just trust me on this, it just explodes. It's not super spectacular. Like we would need like some cool animation for that. So yeah, Donut Guy, if you're watching this, like he made a bunch of cool particles before, and I bet he could make a cool nuclear explosion. But anyway, let's like throw this thing on. Maybe it cools enough or it doesn't cool enough. I feel like you're gonna need a lot of water to run this thing at like maximum power, which would probably get like the optimal temperature was like something like 200 degrees. Because like actually nuclear reactors, they don't need a lot of heat, you know? They usually just heat water and then just use, you know, steam to generate electricity. Or actually I can show you what it looks like when the thing starts overheating. And yeah, also generates a lot of electricity. Like there's so much balancing I yet have to do. And I have also not talked about the nuclear waste, because I have also added nuclear waste. Anyway, let's just turn this up as high as we can, and then turn off the cooling, which is really safe to... We've got nuclear waste! Oh no, this is kind of embarrassing. It's broken. Like, I swear I had this working before. Okay, I fixed the reactor, as you can see by the giant amount of smoke coming out of it. It still has some problems here. Why does it say no? That's actually maybe. But yeah, as this thing starts to heat up, there's this smoke animation, which tells you, hey, I think your reactor is not looking so chill at the moment. And I think if we get to like 1800 degrees or something, it actually blows up. Because I think that's the point at which like the reactor materials melt. I really don't know what I'm doing. I just asked ChatGPT some questions on how nuclear reactors work, and they have not cancelled my subscription yet, so that's good. Yeah, as you can see, it now says temperature critical. I mean, I did some really janky stuff with the language stuff, and we should probably just get this thing going again, because I want to show you how the nuclear waste works. We could actually dump more pure uranium into this thing, and then we can, you know, heat it up even faster. It seems like a great idea. Like at this point, this stuff is basically weapons grade. And it's way too much heat. We got nuclear waste. As you can see at close screen, it's polluted, and it has like 1 million pollution. Let's go out of God mode. I mean, it's not that deadly. Okay, it's a little bit random. But yeah, as this thing is just sitting there, over time, it should hopefully eventually release some of its pollution, like right now. So basically, what this allows you is to just dump a bunch of nuclear waste into like some kind of space, let it all just like cool off for a couple decades, and then it's not that radioactive anymore, and you could walk up to it and just punch it with your hammer, and that should destroy it. Or you just dump it into these drop containers and then put the drop containers somewhere, I don't know. So this is basically how you'll deal with the nuclear waste, and I'm sorry if it looks a little bit green and spooky, but it's funny. And if I make it too realistic, it's just gonna be boring and nobody will understand it. That was a lot of rambling about nuclear power. So let's talk about what I'm gonna add next. Fusion power. So right now our nuclear reactor works with nuclear fission, as this just means we take a big atom like uranium and split it into smaller ones and a bunch of energy, and we can also turn a bunch of small atoms together into one big atom. and a bunch of energy. But what's important here is that we don't just have one material. We need deuterium and tritium, and we need to fuse those together to helium and a neutron. So I already added them as droppers, and both of them, you know, like hydrogen, are just gases. Tritium, however, is radioactive, so it's a little unstable. Also, there's a problem with the tritium. This is also gas, should also float, and it's not floating. Alright, I fixed the drops. Turns out inheriting a lot of drops gets really messy because I am not doing that as properly as I should. But yeah, you can see those are radioactive glowing thingies that go up, and they also create pollution when they decay since they're radioactive. Oh my god, this is so satisfying to look at, just them floating drops. But yeah, I'll probably just start coding that and I'll show you what I've got. Hey guys, I'm back and I have finished the fusion generator. Let's have a little look at it. It's basically just an overly complicated glass pipe. I mean, it's again because I just have to use a bunch of placeholder models, and yeah, I've actually been getting back into some live streaming recently, so it's usually on the weekends, and yeah, you might catch me in another stream, and if you're curious about the whole 4 hours, you could like enjoy the mess there, or I'll just give you a rundown of what I actually added, because I also had to finish this thing like off stream, because 4 hours went nearly enough, and we just fused deuterium and tritium together, and then we just get energy. Now, first up, before we can use this thing, we need to power up the fusion reactor, because as you see, for a DT fusion reaction, we need a lot of temperature basically. And you know, like the sun, it's pretty hot, so we also need to make it pretty hot. Basically, we just heat up plasma, that's how it works. I added this amazing charge-up process. So you basically need to supply 1 megawatt of power for like 10 seconds. Then you like heat up the reactor, and there it is with the plasma. And still, it's, you know, it keeps consuming 1 megawatt of power to just keep it powered up. And once we start generating energy with the fusion, that would offset the cost of heating the plasma. It sounds so much more scientific considering I barely know anything about the whole process, but I can pretend like I do. So let's load up some, I don't know, is this tritium or deuterium? Now what we want to try and achieve is reach a 50% ratio, and actually I think there's a small bug. We're actually using fuel. This should not be happening since I turned it to like off. So, yeah, I thought I had this done, apparently I don't. And okay, how does this thing now work? We have the fuel points, so like every single gas drop that gets in here gets us 1 fuel point. And then there's also the ratio of deuterium relative to tritium. I forgot which way around I calculated, but basically if this is 50%, there's like the highest chances of the 2 different like atoms like bumping into each other, so that's good. If I turn this thing on, you'll see we generate quite a bit of power, and the closer we are to this even ratio, the more power we produce logically. And I mean, that's kinda it. Now another thing is, if you've actually paid attention to the Wikipedia page, you do know that, yeah, deuterium and tritium, they react to helium and a neutron. And now what would be helium? A balloon, because it's filled with helium. I don't know, I thought it's kind of funny. Also, the colors of the balloons are random and it just looks really colorful. Okay, I'm not entirely sure how you actually produce tritium these days, but one way of getting it is with like a lithium breeder reactor that like fuses lithium with a neutron to produce helium and tritium. And I don't know, I just stole that idea. I don't know if that's entirely realistic, but now the tritium thingy, it produces tritium as well as, I mean, wait for it, I'm just not really lucky right now, but there's also a chance for it to produce helium. I don't know if this is really realistic. I mean, it's one way to get it, but it also creates more of a challenge because now you need to filter out the helium from the tritium, so it's not that easy to get the 50-50 ratio, so you have to do a little bit of work. And also just ignore whatever the hell is going on with that sun. That's for a later video. I mean, it's pretty dope though. Anyway, also you might be wondering where the hell I got the model for the helium balloon from. Now, obviously, you probably know that I stole it from the golf game mode they made for Scrap Mechanic. And that is true. However, the problem is that the tether of the helium balloon and the balloon itself are two different models. So I had to use the powers of Blender to create a model that fuses both meshes together. And yeah, I have touched Blender again, and I'm really surprised this worked. Like, Blender is just the gift that keeps on giving, and especially Scrap Mechanic has a lot of issues kind of with models too, and you'll really hear me rant about it in the next video, but basically I could maybe also tweak some of the models we have by just fusing other vanilla items into them, which is like very janky, but at least they would look kind of different. I also realized there's actually no way to turn off the reactor, so if you don't want to heat the plasma anymore, I think you just have to remove it. Well, I hope you're a nuclear physics expert now. Now, I still have like 3 generator ideas to add to the mod, and they're all kind of done already, so it's gonna be exciting to show you. And then I have to work on the scary part, which means working on all the upgraders, and then we basically have the gameplay of the mod done. Of course I still have to do the balancing, but yay, I might actually finish the whole thing. And you maybe remember how I said I want to get the mod done by early October? I don't think that's gonna happen anymore. My life's just like really different from when I started the mod, and it's also been getting really hard to make videos sometimes, so that's been kind of slowing down stuff, and just so many other things getting in the way. Well, if I don't actually get my ass to work on the mod soon, I'll probably just put out some early access version all of you can enjoy, and then it's kind of incomplete and maybe some of the gameplay is missing, but at least you can finally play around with stuff.